Happy holidays, everybody. We're here with our latest installment of MSP Business School and getting ready for the holiday season. With me are the two other elves in cheer we got here, Rob Rogers and Tim McNeil. How you guys doing today?
Doing well.
Doing well.
You're just spending a little bit of the holiday season out in Anaheim. That's a little different vibe when it's nice and sunny.
It was
versus what we get here in the Northeast, right?
I tell you what, though, it was weird because it was not as warm as you would think. It was, one night it got down into the high 40s.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, it was really odd, but it was cool to be able to, we were like, where the ASCII event was kind of overlooking the park, Disney World.
Disneyland.
Or Disneyland, sorry.
Yeah.
That one too. It was cool. Nice
yeah.
place.
Yeah, it was definitely a good time for sure. And it was their end of year party as well. So it was a fantastic time for everybody. It was a good turnout.
That's awesome.
It was.
Yeah.
But now it's back to the Northeast where we could always have a white Christmas.
Yeah.
And, as we talk a little bit about, the holidays, what we've decided we're going to do today is kind of do a little bit of a year-end wrap up and talk a little bit about some of our favorite episodes from the year. Now, by no means is this an exhaustive list, so nobody take offense if we didn't name you. We only got so much time. But these were some of the shows that we got the biggest response from our listeners on and heard the most about. So we wanted to highlight them and, remind you what's out there. And then, maybe during your downtime during the holidays, you can listen to a few of them. We always appreciate that. So Tim, I'm going to reach out to you first, man. What was one of the shows that you liked best from this year?
Yeah. One of mine was probably one of the ones that I remember most was Teresa Rule from RNT Professional Services. She, just one of the most interesting people I've ever met in my life. She looks, admittedly, and I've told her this, so I'm not saying anything that I haven't told her. I mean, she looks like a grandma, but yet she runs one of the more successful security companies you will ever see. She's just an impressive person with her background in the military, working in the White House, her work with countries to make sure that they're squared away from a security standpoint. It's the stories that she has. It's just, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. And one of the cool things in this episode is she shared those stories. And, it really is amazing to hear what her background was coming into this. And to your point, she runs not only a great security company, but holds a cyber ethics event every year. And I was fortunate to get to participate. You may find a couple of our other guests have been participants in there too, as we go through this later. But I would agree with you that was a great episode.
Yeah. Went from former Marine to running a huge company that's working with all I liked her so much. She was great.
Yeah, just good people.
Yeah. So with that said, listeners, we're going to play a little bit of that interview for you so you can get a taste of what she's all about.
Oh, that's awesome.
Right.
Well, this whole environment of CMMC is really there to protect the data, the critical data that the United States Department of Defense needs to protect. And sometimes it's just federal contracting data. One of our clients had, for instance, a Porta-John business, and you're saying, how can you get cybersecurity with a Porta-John business? I know you're thinking it, Rob, you're just not saying it. But if there's an RFID tracker on the top of every one of those Porta-Johns and you deliver 150 of them to a landing zone for a training exercise, I guarantee you somebody knows the algorithm for how many people are going to be in that landing zone, right? In those Porta-Johns. Other things are, how do we protect that data? And the thing that excites me is that if you go back to why we started this business, and it's to keep our country safer, and it's also to protect the intellectual property of your clients, because if you have a patent and somebody from another nation state steals that data and can make a cheap knockoff and sell it, how does that undermine our nation's economy?
Well, that was great. It's always great to hear from Teresa. But Rob, I was going to say, let's move on to you now, and maybe you can tell us about one of the guests that you got that really hit you this year.
So, with, this is like me, former military. And I see him all the time at every single ASCII event. And at every single ASCII event, he's always got people around him. And it's Michael from Solutions Granted. That was just, it was a great show. He's a fantastic speaker, both on stage and in the podcast. And he's got just a spin with his company that is just really resonating with the market right now. And that was, one of my favorite shows. Not to mention that when he was on our show, he went to get a sip of coffee and he had a hand grenade coffee mug, which was just, it just set everything.
Awesome.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And should we?
I was just going to say, he's such a good guy. I mean, look, we see him, like Rob said, at all the ASCII events. They actually just won the ASCII Cup last week for like the top vendor of all the ASCII events throughout the year. And it's everybody that we talk to that's working with him or worked with him. They say really nice things about him.
Highly deserved.
And PS, for anybody that sees, if you happen to see him at a bar, make sure to buy him a shot of Jameson.
He loves it.
Nice Irish lad in that regard. I like it.
Yeah.
Before we leave, Michael, we'd be remiss to say that episode also contained one of our funniest moments out of the year, or at least one of the more sadly entertaining moments is probably the best way to say it. And this might have also led to the retirement of this segment. Yes, Michael had shared a wonderful story with us, and really, Rob, I think you defined it best when we were prepping for the show today as his purpose. Yeah. And it really stopped us dead in our tracks. But then we were at the end of the broadcast and Timmy comes up and goes, "So talk, text, or Teams, Michael?" And we went into the 5 questions. And as we learn and grow, that was definitely a moment where we said, we got to read the room, right?
I felt so bad for Timmy there. I felt so bad for him.
I remember saying, I don't even know how I'm supposed to do these, but here we go.
He just crushed us with this great purpose, authentic empathy, everything. And then we had to go in with the 5 questions.
So in this segment, we're going to bring you some of the more inspiring comments that Michael shared with us, and we will not bring Timmy's shameful moment into the picture at that stage.
Awesome.
Well, I think you kind of hit on it there, but it's not just doing the right thing by the clients there, right? It seems like you have built a pretty good culture there in your company as well. Before we move on, how did you build your culture in your company, and what do you attribute it to?
Thank you, Uncle Sam, and thank you, Mom and Dad. My mom and dad and all my aunts and uncles, born and raised in Northeast Ohio, and General Motors was the place to be and work. And watching them go to work, watching them work hard, watching them be proud of what they were doing and not complain. I mean, we all complain, but no incessant whining. I don't ever remember my mom and dad complaining about a hard day of work. It was what they were meant to do, and being proud of it. So I think that is part of what I learned as a child. Then the military reinforced it, and trying to have a family. I tell my family all the time, is like, look, I have 2 families. I have my biological family and I have my work family. And I spend more time with my work family than I do my biological family. And I treat them as such. When they have a bad day, or they need help moving, or they've got a sick kid, it doesn't stop because I've walked out of the office. We've got to support one another. And I think that's where that culture really comes into play, of supporting people. I think the way our grandparents just did, when there was a problem with your neighbor 4 houses down, well, all the neighbors showed up and all the neighbors pitched in, and they all did what needed to be done. But we've become such a isolated, contained, self-absorbed society that we've forgotten just the necessary need of community and taking care of one another.
Well said.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that.
All right. Well, that was awesome to hear from Michael there. Now I want to kind of introduce one of my favorite people that we've had on the show. And I've had the opportunity to spend a little time with them and engage them in a number of different ways. And that's Abe Garver from Focus Investment Banking. Abe is consistently one of the biggest value providers out there in terms of sharing information with the marketplace. Many of you might know Abe at this stage or at this point. He certainly raised up his Q level or Q rating at the IT Nation event. But, he's become one of the foremost MSP, M&A advisors in our industry and really has some incredible statistics on what's going on. So Abe is now joining us a couple times a year to really give that M&A report. And in this segment, in just a moment, we're going to talk a little bit about, some of the things that he saw during 2021. Guys, I don't know if you have any thoughts about, our visits with Abe, but, he's definitely one of my favorite guests.
Yeah, I'll second that. Abe is, not only is he just a really great person, his knowledge of the industry and how the M&A market is kind of how it's transitioned over the last few years, especially the second time we had him on, it was kind of eye-opening to see the amount of just venture capitalists or just all these companies kind of combining out there. It's the man's he's got a pulse on the industry. There's no doubt. He is the person to know if you're looking to buy or sell your company.
Yeah, I remember when I was speaking with him, the thing that really resonated with me is, beyond him just being a sharp cookie, right? That guy is sharp. But I think what really made him special was his ability to not talk in M&A speak, but bring it down to where we could all understand it in our language, right? So it wasn't tech speak, to use our industry term
for that area,
or banker speak. We understood what he was trying to say, and he didn't make me feel dumb by having to dumb it down for us, right? It was
much of a
good.
reach sometimes for you and I.
It's not sometimes.
So let's give a listen to what Abe had to say here in 2021. But maybe you could talk a little bit about what the buyers are looking for today. So, whether it's a PE-backed company or just, somebody that is looking for, an acquisition out there, what are you seeing are the right traits for a company that might be looking to sell to have in order to make a successful acquisition?
And I'll, since we were just
right up there in front of me. Wow.
Yeah.
I knew it was coming.
It's a great transition.
I'll kind of expand on what from the buyer's perspective, what they found so appealing about domain and tier one. And for smaller MSPs, smaller MSPs that are listening, this is I'm going to give 8 different things that the buyer's looking for. This is something that definitely to hone in on. One is cultural fit. So to get to this level, to take the private equity platform investment, many of the conversations I have with potential sellers, they're not yet large enough really for a transaction. And my advice is, let's find the person that you really click with in your peer group. There's a great cultural fit. There's a great kind of tech stack fit. Let's look at that. Let's look at that kind of network that you have first, and find a transaction partner that together you can be worth. We can get a higher valuation for your business and kind of increase likelihood of kind of long-term success and trajectory. So for those listening, I'll just go through the list. It's cultural fit, geographic fit, strategic fit, financial fit, low integration risk, a leadership gap being filled, an inactive shareholder being taken out, and a reduction of customer concentration.
Always insightful as ever, is it not?
That's
great stuff.
It's just good stuff.
It is.
So Tim, we're back around to you. Share with us another guest that you enjoyed having on this year.
Yeah, actually, I would say one of our more recent ones was MJ Shoer from Comptia. MJ is somebody that Rob and I have gotten to know over the last 18 months, 24 months, somewhere in that neighborhood. Just a really great guy. Not only his experience of building and eventually selling his MSP, but his transition to Comptia and their focus on security and his role within that. Man, he's on his game, and really just just a great person to be around altogether. Really liked having him on.
I'll tell you, so when we were when we were over at Anaheim last week, we're all just, hanging out there, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, MJ walks in the room. He was doing something completely different, like with a different organization. I think he was doing CompTIA's year-end thing.
Yeah.
And he just walks into the room, and you could just see everybody stop and turn their heads, and then it was just like a flock to MJ. And he was just sitting there in his Mickey Mouse t-shirt and shorts and flip-flops, just trying to like check into his hotel, and he just happened to be at our hotel. It was amazing. It was awesome. Just like he is a light. He's definitely a force out there.
Good guy.
Yeah. And to pivot it back to the work side of it, what they're trying to do with the ISAO out there and CompTIA, and the fact that information sharing is so critical to, fighting the ailments that are hitting the industry. As we record this, we're in the midst of the Log4j exploit, and the information that's coming from these information sharing groups like CompTIA and vendors like Huntress, who are taking a lead position and bringing that information, are critical to our industry. So knowing that there's somebody like MJ at the helm who's really starting to drive the growth outreach, and the cost was so small to become a part of that too, that almost any MSP that isn't a part of it's almost being negligent in their responsibility to their customers. And that can be, you guys can all fight me on that later out there and listening to us, but I know from my seat, information sharing is where the power comes in solving problems. So totally excited to have that there. So let's give a short listen to what MJ's got to say and what he shared with us just a couple of weeks ago.
And just for those of us out there who may not know what ISAO stands for, what does that stand for, and can you just get into that a little bit?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's interesting. I'm glad you asked that, because we spent much more time than we expected educating the market about that very thing. So an ISAO is an information sharing and analysis organization. What that means at its core is that we share cyber threat intelligence that we gather from public and private sources. So we get it from private industry feeds, government feeds, from Homeland Security, things like that. These are chunks of, in some cases, very raw data that talk about the threat landscape out there, what the active exploits are, what the 0 days are, the vulnerabilities that exist. Sometimes that can be a collection of indicators, IP addresses, URLs, file names, CVEs, indicators of compromise are called IOCs, like anything in technology, acronym soup, right? But it's somewhat raw and unfiltered data. So the role of an ISAO and the counterpart to an ISAO is an ISAC. ISACs have actually been around longer. The only difference being the last letter. In an ISAC, it's Information Sharing and Analysis Center. In an ISAO, it's Information Sharing and Analysis Organization. The ISACs focus on critical infrastructure. So think of banking, healthcare, aviation, natural gas, nuclear energy. There are ISACs just focused on those quote unquote critical infrastructure segments. And they have very focused, smaller memberships that are tightly wound around their, the information sharing that they need. ISAOs form around communities of interest, vertical industries, trade associations. There we are. CompTIA is a not-for-profit trade association in the IT industry. So that's why we're able to do similar work for a much broader audience, but still a focused audience, right? There's, we're focused on the MSP space. So we have about 1,255 member companies right now. We bring in that threat information, we turn it into understandable and actionable reports. So, for anyone who's old enough to remember the newspaper, I always talk about the newspaper analogy of above the fold, below the fold, right? Above the fold, that's where you always put the catchy picture or the catchy headline so that somebody buys the paper. And then when they open it, below the fold is the whole story, which can sometimes not be that exciting. We try to take a similar approach. So when we issue an alert or a threat report to our members, it's a very standardized format. It's a summary. Here's the issue. There are the analyst comments. This is what this is, this is the risk to your business and your customers. And then the most important part, the below the fold details are, here are the mitigation steps you can take. Here's what you can do to protect yourself against this risk. And then all of the relevant sources or materials that are out there, whether we're linking back to a government advisory, a private industry advisory, a listing somewhere, what have you.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, that's your rock star right there. That was a great little snippet there. And I hope everybody enjoyed that. With that, I'm going to pass the baton back to you, Rob. And who is your next?
So sticking with the airborne theme of, people who are also in the airborne, Guy Walton is my next one. I liked him, he's the cybersecurity expert. He was the 82nd Airborne Infantry guy that got out of 82nd Airborne, a total grunt, right? That kind of guy, and went from jock to nerd and went to the FBI and helped them start up their entire division. I really had a good time listening. And on the side, he's also a preacher, right? Just a great, all right. He's got it all covered out there. I really enjoyed that conversation.
Yeah. He checked every box. It was funny, man. There again, just another interesting person looking to start up the security side, and his background and how he transitioned into the security world was, I found to be extremely interesting.
Yeah. And what's really amazing about him is he just brings an energy into every conversation that he's a part of. He's been part of Teresa Rule's cyber ethics program for the last couple of years, and he brings it when he speaks. And I'm sure that is the preacher background, but when you think about it, it's like he's had that kind of lifetime already where like being a ranger might be the least interesting thing about him, right? That with the other things he's done in some of the cyber events he's been a part of investigating. So, certainly it'll be, hopefully you listeners will find it very entertaining to hear a little bit from Guy Walton here, and let's shift over to that.
And get back to the Intel chip. The Intel lab got broken into in Los Angeles. The crooks contacted Cytex in Dallas and wanted to sell it. They said they would sell it for $75,000. Okay, we're brand new agents. We had 2 senior agents. They were literally directing us with some unique words because we didn't know what we were doing. But we got it done. We got $75,000 from the feds. And I'm gonna tell you, $75,000 is pretty heavy. It's nice heavy. So we took that and we made the change, and the senior engineer from Intel came there, verified that it was his product. And when the SWAT team took the guy down, it was an emotional experience for him and
an emotional experience. That's a great.
That's a very polite way to say it.
So working with FBI was really, really a learning experience. We had a great time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Guy is definitely an amazing person here. Tim, I see you signaling us about time today, but I don't think we care. This is an end of the year road wrap up, so we're going to go a little long today.
All right, game on. Let's do this.
So now I'm going to talk about one of my other favorite guests, and certainly a resource that most of us in the industry know and listen to, and that's Jay McBain over at Forrester. Jay was nice enough to join us, on our podcast after naming us one of his top 100 podcasts, then labeling us with a top 10 label. But that's neither here nor there. That's not why he's part of this list. Yeah. Why he's part of this list is he's really the forerunner in understanding the ecosystems that are going to be driving our industry in the future, and really giving the crystal ball that a lot of MSPs better start paying attention to and looking into about where this industry is going. We talk about transition all the time, how the 2000s turned into the 2010s and the game changed because cloud replaced on-prem. Then as the 2010s progressed, cybersecurity became a bigger problem and will never go out of style. But, Jay really sat there with us and said, if MSPs aren't getting on the stick and looking at things like automation and looking at things like, continuing to look at security, orchestration of all the different applications, and stop thinking like a break fix company, they will go by way of the dinosaur, right? And I think it's important to have somebody that's really doing that research in our industry and is so open and sharing it, so the MSP community continue to grow at large. So I love having him on.
Yeah, I mean, huge influencer in the space. I mean, I would, anybody who's associated with the space and goes to conferences of any kind probably knows the name. It was pretty cool to be on the top 100 list or top 10 list or the 100, and then dwindled, I guess, down to the top 10. So that was.
She
cool.
probably tells everybody at every podcast he's on, but we'll take
probably
it.
says, you're my favorite. You're my favorite.
Hey,
you know what I liked about him?
It's a good line.
What I liked about him is both he has an analytical research mind and he has an ability to speak it, right? He was a great public speaker, and the statistics that are all forward, like research based, right? But indicative of what's going to happen in the future. Like, just the whole thing was just well thought out and really well researched.
Yep. And
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, while being a human, if you follow Jay on social media, you see as much as you can interact with him on industry stuff. He's a person too, and you can talk about, he really opens up and shares his personal level. Obviously, being married to Michelle Ragusa McBain as well, a very known person from the channel at Cisco. The two of them are just like the dynamic duo of content.
No kidding. Yeah.
So let's give a listen to Jay.
Yeah, I mean, I would always focus my business on the future, and always take that moment, to go sit on a hill somewhere and think about, you're an entrepreneur, you started your business. You started it in one of the fastest growing industries. Tech is 5% of GDP. It'll be 10% of GDP by the end of the decade. Mm-hmm. But the other 90% of GDP is also becoming tech. It's not an industry anymore. It's a horizontal across everything. So in this world that every company becomes a tech company, you start to focus forward. Managed services is 20 years old. It's hit a little bit of a plateau. There's price compression. There's a lot of consolidation. There's websites set up to just manage the M&A and everything else that's going on every day. So the fact of the matter is managed services going to be as rich and viable of a business model in 10 years from now as it is today? And where are the places I could be building skills, building practices, and what's the finger on the pulse going forward? So, I would be watching automation, which is the #1 spending area in the world right now, given where we are in a pandemic. Mm-hmm. A company like UiPath grew 5,614% 2 years ago. Last year, 83% growth and went public and is worth $1 bajillion. If I'm not thinking about RPA, BPA, no code, low code, and getting on top of that opportunity. #2, the cloud acceleration. You've been asleep if you haven't seen Azure grow at 50, 50, 48, and 47 inside a pandemic. Google Cloud growing at 46. The head of AWS getting the big promotion to take over Jeff Bezos. If you're not if your business isn't growing by 50% year on year, you're not taking advantage of the opportunity there and the $5 multiplier that every one of those dollars kicks out. You're not reading those reports. You're not reading about Microsoft unlocking trillions of dollars. None of it's program dollars. You're not reading about Salesforce's $4.65, HubSpot's $5.80, Google Cloud's $5.32. If you're not reading those reports and figuring out where that 75% margin 5-time multiplier is, how you can ask a customer for $1, $2, or $3 for every dollar they buy of public cloud, I would be questioning, where you want to take your business.
One more that you wanted to share with us for today.
I do. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to leave out our business coach and somebody that's really helped us groom our service. And that's Shawn Walsh from Encore Strategic Consulting. He, for anybody who doesn't know, he runs peer groups and helps MSPs just really profit, grow, and exit. That's his whole thing. Great guy. It was really nice having him on the show. It was one of our longer ones, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, 45 minutes.
Yeah, he can talk, but
I was gonna say commands a room.
Yeah, he's got a lot to offer. He's got a lot to offer. You know, the similar vein to MJ, started, built, and sold an MSP, and now he's on to his second career within the MSP space. So, always a good person to have on.
Yeah.
And very smart of you to get your business coach into your list so you don't have to listen to him after this. Rob, you were going to say something?
No, just, the thing that I like about Shawn is like, he's a reader, right? He's always reading books and he's always trying to pawn off some book on you and make you read it. But the man just has a knowledge of this industry and people in this industry, and his ability to take the data and make a strategy out of it is just, it's hands down one of the best things I've ever seen somebody be able to do. And that, I think that's one of the reasons why we were just enthralled. Like for 45 minutes, I tracked it. It was 45 minutes. It was good stuff, man. I really liked it a lot.
Yeah. That said, I do want to say Rob made a face there when he talked about getting books pawned on him, like a 5-year-old who just had a plate of vegetables sat before
Brian. Brian, you have no idea. Every time I talk to him,
the amount of books that it defies logic.
If it was a drinking game, Brian, we'd all be drunk. Yep, Shawn's offered another book. Drink.
So let's pivot from there and let's hear what Shawn's got to say for a few minutes.
Well, I teach a leadership course now, and one of the big negative impacts we have is think of who you think of as a leader. If I say, give me the name of a dynamic leader, who do we think of? We think of generals from World War II. We think of these people who come in and take charge and they tell everybody what to do, but that's really not an effective leader. That's not scalable. But unfortunately, Hollywood has perpetuated this myth that a leader comes in, tells everybody everything, and everybody else does what they're told. And that is not the way to build a highly effective organization. Leaders need to ask questions. They need to be humble. The hardest thing for me to understand and to learn was that they don't work for me. I work for them. And you really have to change that attitude. I'm a firm believer, leaders are not born. It is a taught skill. It is a learned skill. Sometimes you learn those with a big dose of humble pie. I'll be the first one to admit when that time came, it wasn't because I said, I want to improve myself and be a better leader. It was because I almost lost my company. And I realized, holy moly, I either need to learn how to be different and find another way to do this, or I'm not going to make my mortgage payment coming up. So it was very humbling and it was painful. I mean, it was not an easy process. And that's part of what I try to do now with people is make that process a lot easier. And as I tell clients, I am not standing here sitting at this table or standing in the front of this room because I'm the smartest guy in the room. I'm standing here because I've made every stupid mistake that I challenge you to try to beat me at. And please learn from my pain and my experience, because it would be awful. It would be an awful waste if somebody didn't get some benefit out of it. Because
good stuff, man. Good stuff. I really like that. So Rob, you are up next, and I got a feeling the theme continues.
The theme does continue with the Army. And this one is Brett Jaffee, who I just saw him again at ASCII just 2 weeks ago here last week, and he's a former MSP owner. He was on our show. He's doing a lot of different things now. But the thing that I really liked about Brett in this show is his energy to the show, the knowledge and the strategy that he can bring to everything, and his ability to cut to it immediately and understand the problem in its essence without all the fluff. He's another person who helped us grow our company. Yes. Right. And he's the one who taught us, way back in the day. He's moved on from it since then, but EOS, he was one of the people that introduced us to EOS and taught us how to do it. And yeah, just a really stand-up guy who understands this industry, the channel, and the ability to build a strategy. That's his asset.
Yeah,
Awesome.
he unfortunately, that was one that I don't remember why, but I couldn't make that. But I wasn't on that one. But you know, Brett's somebody that we've known for a while. I don't know if I've ever met anybody who can walk into an MSP and within a very short period of time know what's wrong, what needs to be fixed, and have
how
a
to fix it.
solution.
Yeah,
he's a very unique person.
It's uncanny. Yeah,
it's next level. It really is.
Awesome. Well,
yeah,
that's enough about you guys glowing about him. Let's go to a clip and let's let Brett speak for himself for a couple minutes.
So Brett, I got a question for you. You guys have been, you're doing this. You're helping all these different MSPs out there. You're helping all these guys. What would be the first thing that you look at a business and how do you help the small MSP go from level 1 to level 2, whatever that level is? What would be the first thing that you could get out there and really help somebody with?
One of the things that we started changing around was that every business really has to start with the business owner and what they want. And what's kind of crazy about this industry is everyone's driven toward, I want to build my business to sell it. I'm going to help you build your business. You could sell it, sell. Not everyone wants to sell the company. There are some people that want to build something that's a legacy they could hand down to their kids. There are some people that want to create a business that employs a number of people to help the community. So the number one thing that we do is we'll spend just a day with the business owner, or if they're partners, the partners, and really get to the bottom of what they personally want out of it. So there's some kind of impact component. What do you want personally? Because everything starts there. When you start there, it's really no different than setting a goal and having a plan. So when you start, you plan. I mean, I'll go back to the Ironman race. At some point, if you're swimming, your head's in the water, and you don't take your head out of the water. And you could ask me how I found this out the hard way, but you start doing circles. So there's always one arm that's stronger than the other. So they teach you a method called bilateral breathing, where you breathe from both sides, not just like an Olympic swimmer. And between certain strokes, you look up straight ahead and you sight something in the distance. And that keeps you kind of focused and on the right path to get there. So part of what we do is this guidance to keep people on that path. The other part is knowing that you have to get somewhere in the distance, and there are steps to get there. It's not an overnight piece. If you say, hey, I'm doing $1 million in sales, well, where do you want to be? I want to be 5 million or 10 million. Great. What's the time frame? Well, now there's a strategy. The military called it back planning. To me, hey, you have to have an entire hospital unit set up in a theater of operations by August 1st of next year. Well, what do you have to happen the month before, 3 months before, 6 months before? And you work backwards from there till you have an actual plan you could follow. And that's kind of what we do, is we keep them on that path.
Yeah, that was great. I always enjoy listening to what Brett's got to say. Wealth of knowledge, no doubt.
Yeah.
So I guess it's me closing it out.
All right, let's see what you got, Brian.
Let's be clear. This is by no means a last but not least kind of situation.
Okay.
Because Kevin Clune is my third pick, and he is one of only two-timers we got, him and Abe. So Rob had the bias towards the Army. I have the bias towards those that are two-timers apparently on my list, which means we got to get Jay back sooner rather than later. But Kevin's been great, because Kevin is really focusing on spreading the message of marketing to the masses within the MSP community, but without being an agency-driven model. He's really out there sharing what you can do and giving you tools to execute on it, without just trying to get you to come in and be part of his agency and get your programs done. It's kind of that teach a man to fish principle. While he does have his platform, MSP Spark, which I'll admit to being a member of and getting some good information from, it's really about community development with him. And that's the mantra he's really trying to get MSPs to understand as well. Be a thought leader, get out there in your community, share the things that your community wants to hear about. Don't worry about competing with the other MSPs, and build your process. So great guest. Love to have him on. We'll probably have Kevin on, just like we've got a couple others, to speak just about marketing a couple times a year as well, and really give him the forum, because there's some good stuff that he has to share.
Yeah, I thought, so I use MSP Sparks, the original one, right? And I love it. All of my employees use it. We use it as a way to, create thought when we're having conversations with MSPs and with prospects. I like it a lot. I haven't jumped onto the next one yet, the one that you're using, the peer group type of model, but I'm looking forward to trying that one out too. He was one of my favorite ones, clearly, right? I'm using his product. So yeah, I liked him a lot.
Yeah, and I personally like the fact that he's going about it from a standpoint of, look, there's a lot of similar sales pitches out there and similar ways to go about getting new clients. So I like how he has systems and programs in place to just be different.
Yeah.
Like if you're an MSP, the biggest thing you need to do right now is be different, and he gives you an avenue to start going down that road.
Yeah, and again, without this being a pitch, we make nothing for this, though. I will say, if you jump into his MSP Spark community, and if you're a small MSP with a fixed budget that's looking for some marketing strategy, support, help, and content, they do brainstorming sessions. It's just a give community. And again, the cost should fit any MSP's model, whether you're brand new starting up yesterday or somebody that's been around for a while, but the content you get and the turnaround time on getting that help is uncanny. So, Kevin is like I said, not the last, but not least kind of thing. It's really, Kevin is giving to the community, and that's one of the reasons we saved him for the end. And I think that's a common theme we had for all of our listeners today. So let's listen to Kevin for a couple of minutes, and then we'll close this one out, guys.
Okay.
I like to tend to work backwards. I think things focusing on conversion, right? So if I have some kind of free offer, maybe a newsletter, maybe a lead magnet or something, I love testing conversion on a small, highly targeted audience. And then once I prove conversion on that, I like to now say, okay, now all I have to do is find more traffic, right? Pour more traffic, that's more gasoline on the fire. Now you have a list. Now there's something you can do. Now you can start attacking the other side of it, which is the nurturing. So you're actually starting in the middle. But it gives you a natural way to kind of go, because you can't nurture an audience that doesn't exist. And you can't throw traffic at a page that kind of doesn't have any way to convert. So you almost have to start there. And then you have to build in both directions. So you have to earn more traffic, and then you have to also continue to nurture the audience that you're, kind of building over time. So it's funny, we actually had somebody, one of our first posts inside MSP Spark was an MSP owner, and they had this problem. They said, I want to get a new website. I don't like my website. No one comes to it. And so thankfully a bunch of people jumped in, and this is part of what we do in there is we actually facilitate that into a clear problem statement. What we found was they actually have multiple problems here. It's not just one problem. It's you don't have traffic. You don't think your website's converting. We need to separate those. And so he got a lot of feedback on how to generate more traffic, a lot of feedback separately on how to now improve your website, but you can't fix both of those at the same time.
Yeah, that was great stuff. Like I said earlier, the best part about this podcast for me is, the fact that we have people that are so willing to give of themselves and really share both the good, the bad, and the ugly with all of our listeners, and give insights into the challenges that every one of us have had in either starting our businesses or being an MSP or MSSP. So that's what I'm most thankful for. And that's what I'm excited about as we wind into the holidays. How about you guys?
Wow. This was a good year, Brian. I think of all the different episodes that we did. We had a lot of different types, styles of people, styles of interviews. We used to do the 5 questions, and we have learned a lot, and we've gotten a lot of feedback, a lot about the 5 questions.
Yeah, we did.
We did. Good and bad. One of the guests were awesome, but one of my favorite things that we did this year on this podcast was answering some of the questions that MSPs sent to us, and being able to really dig in and help somebody like get over that hump, that sales hump where they were stuck at somewhere. So all the guests, they were fantastic and I loved them. But for me, getting in there and tinkering and figuring out how to help an MSP solve an issue, that was my favorite part. And that's the one that I'm most thankful for all the year.
It's so funny too, Rob, because that happened by accident, right? Why did we do our first roundtable session? Because somebody had to cancel on us at the last minute, and we needed to get an episode out.
Yeah, and we're just like, all right, what are we going to do?
And the industry told us what we should do, more of them. We see that when we take some time to break down a specific problem, those are some of our most listened to episodes, our most downloaded episodes. And that's something we commit to in 2022, bringing more of. We will make sure that there's at least 1 or 2 episodes every month where we're just taking a problem that we've been hearing from, either the community reaching us here on MSP Business School, or even just the communities we serve ourselves, and helping those people out. So I'm glad you touched upon that one, Rob, because it's true. We love having our guests, and we'll never stop doing that. But it's been amazing to us, the reception you kind listeners have been giving us about our roundtables and our fireside chats when one of us can't make it.
No kidding.
How about you, Tim? How do you feel? What was some of the things that you liked best about this year?
Well, I think one of the things I liked about it was just the fact that, for the people out there who have kind of listened from the beginning, those first 20 or 30 weeks, there was we'll call it room for improvement. And I think what we've done in 2021 is we kind of hit our stride, right? We identified, things like the 5 questions, which were fine in the beginning, but they kind of run their course. And I really like I love having the guests on, but I'm with Rob. I do like mixing in the roundtables and talking about specific situations. I look forward to 2022. It's funny. Not that Rob and I are going to a ton of conferences, but people have talked about this specifically. And I like that the word's getting around and that we're helping educate people not only on just different scenarios, whether it's sales or services that may be able to help that MSP. I mean, it's just a combination of all that I think is kind of cool. It's what we were shooting for when we first started this. And I think we're at that point, which is nice.
And, while we may be hitting stride, I think there's always room for improvement. And that's part of what we're going to be looking at next year. I think look for some changes in how we increase our production, increase our consumption. And I think we're going to start doing some live events in 2022 when some certain events happen in the industry, like a Log4j or something, where we can contribute and get people on to speak. So, keep an eye out, not just for our podcast, but other things we're going to bring to the party in 2022. With that said, guys, happy holidays. I'm really, I thank you guys a lot for being a part of my world. We started this right at the start of COVID. I think the best part about 2021 is we didn't speak about that as much in every episode. But as we head into the summer and head into the winter, and we see here in the Northeast that the numbers are creeping up, we want to tell everybody to kind of stay safe out there. And I'm looking forward to next year. With that said, Rob, you want to take us home?
I will. Guys, this was a really good episode. I like how, the elf is looking right at Timmy's head.
Right down.
Right at your head. So if anybody can see, we all have different backgrounds on in our podcast right now. And, it's pretty cool. But this episode will be up on mspbusinessschool.com and anywhere that you get your podcast, to include YouTube. So please go there, like, subscribe, put on the little ringer there, and we'd appreciate it. And if you do have any questions, or you have any comments, or you have an idea that you would like us to do on this show for next year, please reach out, let us know. We'd love to hear it. We will 100% take your question and try and dissect it on here between the 3 amigos. And I wish everybody happy holidays and look forward to doing more of these next year.
Yep. And sharing is caring. Give MSP Business School the biggest gift you can give by sharing this episode with those you know in the community. We want to touch more people. So I'll close with that. And everybody have a great holiday season.
All right. Thank you.